kind of talked about it at the beginning, what principles of marketing stay the same going forward, and are there any that are there any new principles that you think are going to come onto the scene in response to not this, but really a changed consumer behavior or a change in consumer behavior? Can you talk about what will stay the same and what might change from a marketing strategy standpoint specifically?
You're asking me first, Caleb?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, things have changed, of course. So all good marketing is always relevant. Okay. And I think probably the easiest thing I find one of the easiest things to anchor these conversations for companies in general is they should just look at something I believe is called the Maslow hierarchy of needs. It's like a triangle. You can Google it. And it just basically kind of talks about the state of where people are at. They're either in are they worried about their health and shelter and food? Or are they, or are they becoming like their ultimate self at the very top? So obviously things have changed right now where people are worried about their jobs, whether they're going to be able to even cover their shelter, possibly food and other things like this. So it'd be really silly not to acknowledge that that's fundamentally changed. Now, I think you have to go back and rejig all your marketing and your conversations to make sure that you're addressing the conversation that people are having, because all good marketing is always entering the conversation that people are having internally in their heads. And those that are able to describe people's problems better than they can describe themselves are going to be able to actually write the right kind of, messaging that they need to do in their marketing. So I think one is acknowledging that it's changed. Two, what has it changed to? And then you need to be able to enter that conversation. If you can do that really well, it's really simple. You just simply kind of put up I like to draw it on a piece of paper, and I always just like to go fears and frustrations, wants and aspirations. And you just need to look at where people are at today. So, you would say that aspirations and fears are imagined, and wants and frustrations are what's going on currently right now. And I can tell you right now, what's super amplified is where people's imaginations are. And they're super motivated by the pain points. And the pain points are always frustrations and fears. We move away from pain and towards pleasure. And so if you just take a couple of those simple exercises and apply that to whoever your ideal customer or ideal client is, you'll start coming up with the right kind of messaging to pivot for today. But yeah, if you're not pivoting, you're totally missing the boat. I mean, you have to pivot. I mean, things have changed. You can't disacknowledge that the world has not fundamentally changed.
I might counter with, the world has certainly fundamentally changed while we're in quarantine. I think the question is if when things open back up, will there be some hangover effect that will make us a kinder, gentler people? And I don't think the change has been prolonged enough yet to have a World War II-like mentality. You figure the two biggest booms of the Roaring 20s and the sort of the American Dream 50s followed a decade of depression or global conflict. And we've had like a bad 8 weeks, and maybe you're going to have a bad 3 months or something like that. So I think some of the permanence will depend on how profound and profuse this is. I think the one thing that I would say, Caleb knows that we've sort of built a business around the 8 principles of a cult brand. And these are principles that go back over 100 years. So they've survived depressions and disease and polio and all this stuff. And only one of the 8 is in jeopardy right now, and that's the principle of congregate. So historically, brands have endeared themselves to their public and have earned loyal followers by finding excuses for people to get together, whether that's at brand music festivals or at flagship stores or at grand openings, or even lining up outside the ritual of getting the first iPhone. And that's now in jeopardy, at least until a vaccine is found. So I think a lot of brands that have benefited from this in real life interaction, think about Harley Davidson and kind of getting together with riders or gathering in Sturgis, if they're not allowed to do that, I know we work with a hockey club that's trying to say, is there a way to fake the Congregate principle through a digital fan club or through Zoom or through virtual gaming that somehow scratches the itch that you'd get if you went together to tailgate or to go to a game. And I think that one's a bit in jeopardy. Again, I don't think it's going to be permanent because I don't think we're going to be isolated forever. But if we're isolated for a while, that will show up, I think, in brand affinity scores.
My view is, if we have a discipline like marketing that has principles, those principles should be pretty much permanent. Otherwise, they're not principles. So I think the basics stay the same regardless. Marketing essentially says that we can't be everything to everybody, so we have to be something special to someone in particular. And if we do that well, I think by understanding customers, by understanding how they feel and what they want, things generally work out well. And most people who've ever taken a marketing course before remember taking notes on marketing strategy and thinking about product and service strategies, pricing strategies, distribution strategies, and how we communicate with our market. I think there are some changes occurring. I think certainly in the way that firms are currently managing and will manage products and services. Certainly new products and new services will evolve as a result of this. I think we'll learn about pricing as things go on. Strangely enough, one would suspect that consumers are going to be much more price conscious at the moment. There's a lot of people without jobs, people with reduced incomes, and yet some of the evidence that's coming in so far suggests that the opposite is happening. People are more generous. There are websites that have been set up so that people can tip service workers that even haven't provided service for them. People like DoorDash and Skip the Dishes will tell you that the average tip given to servers now has increased over this time, which tells me that people are not that sensitive to price yet. That might change. Something that's disappointed me is the way in which many firms have communicated with their markets. I don't know about you, but if I hear this term again, we're all in this together, or if I hear we are living in unprecedented times, or these are, I'm going to get ill if I have to listen to these things much more. And I think a lot of the advertising that we're seeing at the moment is really cliched. It's dull, it's boring, it's not inspiring, and it's not doing any good. And then the final thing that I think has to me been a real revelation is, in terms of distribution strategy, has been the nature of our supply chains. On the one hand, our local supply chains, I think, have been phenomenally robust. We probably all remember just 2 months ago when there was the rush on toilet paper and everybody was thinking, well, we're going to be able to get toilet. Well, it was just complete stupid herd mentality that was occurring. Those supply chains are so robust. Your average supermarket has more than enough in supply. And if they don't have it, they have a warehouse somewhere nearby in the city that has it. And if they don't have it, there's a big distribution station somewhere, and then back at the manufacturer, there's more stock. These supply chains have been incredibly robust. We're not going to run out of food. We're not going to run out of the stuff for our homes. So to me, that's been really reassuring. The last thing on earth you want is when these things start to fail, and they haven't. On the other hand, I think global supply chains are really under threat at the moment. I think there are a lot of people in government and in large businesses who are really sorry that they've outsourced manufacturing to some other country somewhere else that is no longer reliable, and that we can't depend on the quality or the supplies that we need. So global supply chains, I think, are under a lot of threat.